Okay, folks, let's solve a trig problem. Take 5. As you can see, I've drawn a circle on the board here. I'm going to follow that up by drawing an x and y axis through the middle of the circle. Here's the y-axis. Here's the x-axis. It is called a unit circle because the radius is 1 unit. So from the origin to here is 1 unit. We have a trig problem, and before we can solve the trig problem, we need to go back to some elementary geometry. And so we're going to go back to our old formula that says the circumference equals 2 pi r, or 2r pi. Now we know that r in this one case is 1, so we're going to solve as such, and that's going to tell us that the circumference is 2 pi. That means if I go around the circle one entire time, I'm going to get 2 pi. Now, from this, we can extract some other positions on the unit circle. And if we go all the way around and we have 2 pi, then apparently halfway around is 1 pi. A quarter of the way around would be half pi. This is 2 over 2. That tells us that this is 3/2 pi. I can further divide, and I can say that if this is 1/4, if this is 1/2, then this is 1/4 pi. This is 2/4 pi. This is 3/4 pi. 4/4 pi. 5/4 pi. 6/4. 7/4 pi. Now I'm going to divide the first quadrant into thirds. So right about here and right about here, we're going to find ourselves with a third. Now a third of a half is a sixth. And this one would be 2/6. 2 over 6 reduces to 1/3. This is 2/6. This is 3/6 rather. This is 4/6, and so that'll reduce to 2/3 pi. Over here, we'll have 5/6 pi. 6/6, so 7/6. 8/6 reduces to 4/3 pi. 9/6, 10/6 reduces to 5/3. And then finally 5/6 pi. Okay, now at this point we need to also consider some other measurements since we're working in radians. And so what that's going to say to us is this. It's going to say from now on the x coordinate is going to be referred to as the cosine. The y coordinate is going to be referred to as the sine. Now here, that would give us a cosine of 1 and a sine of 0. Okay, and at this point too, let's take a look at the equation that we've been given. And here's what it says. It says that the sine of 2x minus the cosine of x equals 0. Well, lucky for us, the sine of 2x factors into 2 times the sine of x and the cosine of x minus the cosine of x. And it still equals 0. Now, when we get it to this point, what becomes clear is that we can factor this thing. And so we are now going to have the cosine of x on the outside, and on the inside, we're going to have 2 sine x minus 1, and the whole thing is going to be equal to 0. Now, we can further factor this to say that the cosine of x equals 0 and 2 times the sine of x minus 1 equals 0. The equation on the right-hand side can be solved algebraically to say that the sine of x equals 1/2 by adding 1 and then dividing by the 2. So what we need to do is we need to find all the instances in a lap around the unit circle where the cosine equals 0 and the sine equals 1/2, and then that will give us our answer. Okay, now as I said, this is 1, 0. Using the Pythagorean theorem, we can find out the coordinates of these three guys right here, and that's going to give us our answer. This one here is easy enough because the cosine is 0 and the sine is 1. But hang on, didn't we say we needed to find where the cosine of x was 0? Well, the cosine of x being 0 is also where x would be 0, and that's going to be pi over 2 and apparently 3 pi over 2. So we now have 2 of our answers. So we will say that we have pi over 2, comma, 3 pi over 2. Over here, we've got a little bit of work to do. We need to find when the sine of x is 1/2. And so the easiest way we could do that is to say, well, we would draw a line from the origin to our points in the first quadrant, like so. And then we would use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for the sine and the cosine. And so what we're going to get is this. At 1/3 pi, x is going to be equal to 1/2, and y is going to be equal to radical 3 over 2. Moving down the line here, we're going to get, right here, we're going to get radical 2 over 2, comma, radical 2 over 2. And then here, at pi over 6, we're going to get radical 3 over 2, comma, 1/2. Now, if you pay attention to these numbers, they're going to go in order. So we have the smallest number right here, which is 1/2, then the second smallest number, which is radical 2 over 2, and then the largest number, radical 3 over 2. And the cosine, the sine is going to go just the opposite. So from 1/2 to radical 2 over 2 to radical 3 over 2 here. Okay, now as we said, we're looking for all instances where the sine of x is 1/2. We have found one right here at pi over 6. So our answer is pi over 6. And then if we were to draw a line from the origin to right here, it's going to be the same numbers, except for that our sine is going to be 1/2, and our cosine is going to be radical 3. No, hold on there. I'm sorry, here we go, back here. We need the cosine to be at 1/2. And if the cosine here is 1/2, then the cosine directly across is 1/2. The sine, rather, is 1/2. The cosine is negative. So our answers are going to be 5 pi over 6 and pi over 6. Thank you for listening.